Welcome back to the 1111 Synchronized Podcast. Hope everyone is well, wearing masks, staying safe, and everyone just join me by taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Yes, so welcome back. If you have any topic requests that you'd like to hear, or if you'd like to be a feature on this channel or me to be a feature on yours, please hit me up, slide into the DMs on Instagram at Agent K21 Podcast, Instagram and Twitter at Agent K21. You can find me on all the social media platforms. Let me know what you'd like to hear. Let me know any questions or topics. Yes, so moving right along. Keeping it moving right with the law of attraction, right? So, couple things before we even continue to dive deeper into the law of attraction. We are always attracting, whether we realize it or not. And oftentimes, when we are attracting, if we're not seeing results or seeing any fruit from our intentions or seeds that we're planting, that could be an indication that we have some blocks, something blocking us. So one of those blocks can be resistance. So what is resistance? We're going to find out. Now there's a lot of writings and spiritual teachers that talk about resistance. There's plenty of books. So, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Definitely invest in find out more for yourself, find the material that you're drawn to naturally. And if this helps, please share it. Please research it more on your own. So I do want to just thank everyone for all the people who are subscribing, listening, commenting, questions coming in. I do read them. I do appreciate them. And what is resistance? What is resistance? So let's go to our good dictionary friend here. Resistance is the refusal to accept or comply with something. The attempt to prevent something by action or argument. Now, there's a lot of, like I've mentioned, good stuff about resistance, but I want to talk about two things because there's two forms of resistance, and I feel like, at least for myself, it was very confusing. So for those who may be like me or who have similar experiences to myself, maybe this might make you feel seen or heard, or just provide some insight. So resistance being the refusal or acceptance to comply with something seems kind of, familiar with a lot of people resisting or refusing to comply with, wearing a mask, just going to put that out there, right? And now, as a result, things have kind of spiraled more out of control, or there's more peaks in different countries, different areas. And it becomes very challenging to want to comply when you look at leaders who are not complying. It becomes, people are always a model, whether they realize it or not, so always doing your best and living your best life, striving for excellence, not perfection, and just kind of living your own truth, right? Whatever that is, just living it. And no one has to agree with you or not, as long as we are authentic to ourselves. That is our light that will shine forth. Now, in the spiritual community, there is a saying, what you resist, persists. I'm sure many of you have heard that. What we resist, persists. What does that mean exactly? And how does that apply to the law of attraction? What we resist, persists, meaning whatever we try to refuse, it just seems to be almost enlarged. It just seems to occupy our thoughts even more. If we try to not think about something, if I say, don't think about lemons, the first thing everyone's going to start thinking about is lemons. And the same thing with the law of attraction. If you start thinking about, a yellow car, all of a sudden you're seeing a yellow car everywhere you go. And that's like a true theory, if you will, because it seems every time I've done something, and I'm sure some of you agree with this, anytime you do something, you buy a new car, you listen to a new song, whatever the case is, all of a sudden that's just popping up everywhere. And it's like, what? I wasn't even thinking about this before. Now it's just everywhere. So what we resist persists. And I'm going to try to find a quote, thanks to Google, what other people have said, what resist persists, because that's my interpretation. What we resist persists, So here's the first thing that pops up. It says, quite the opposite. Carl Jung contended that what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. So let me see meaning. What you resist persists meaning. What you resist persists. It's just another way of saying don't focus on what you don't want. Because when you are resisting things you don't like, that's exactly what you are doing, focusing on what you don't want. Okay. So that's what the spiritual community says. What you resist persists. Don't focus on it because, that's drawing it to you. That's attracting it to you. The thing about it is when we're not aware of what we're even resisting, we're still attracting it to us. Let me try to say that again. When we're not aware of what we're even feeling or thinking, we're always attracting. We always have these receptors within us. So a lot of times it can kind of induce fear. Oh, I don't want to think about anything negative. That already is negative in itself. I'm not going to think about anything negative. So therefore we are judging what we are even thinking about. We're categorizing it as negative automatically, which therefore attracts more negativity if we see it that way. I choose to do it a little differently. For me, it's about awareness and observation, not what I resist persists. In some cases, yes. And that's what I really want to talk about, is the discernment of what we resist persists. What does that actually mean? What are some live examples of that? So for example, let me think of one real quick. For example, if I'm resisting, something simple like I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but I'm not going to have that because I'm on a diet and I say I shouldn't have it, or whatever the case is. That could actually be potentially a good thing. If I'm trying to cut bread out of my diet and I decide I choose not to have that, I'm going to want that sandwich, but I choose not to. Is that me? The feeling is going to persist of me wanting that sandwich. And so then it becomes, do I have that sandwich and what effects does it have? You know what I'm saying? Because of course that's a very simple expression of it. That's not actually the depth of it. But I think even furthermore, when we resist our negative feelings, our thoughts, what can happen is we can actually brush them under the carpet and kind of slip into denial. They don't go away. They just accumulate more dust under the carpet. And then we kind of feel like, wait, why is all this happening? Why do I feel sick in my body? Why are these terrible events happening? It's because we were kind of operating out of fear. And again, I've said before, is when we operate out of fear, that creates such a block. Because in order to receive the law of attraction, we have to operate out of love. We have to operate out of surrender, out of peace, out of the least resistance, right? So the opposite of resistance would be to allow. That means to hold space. That means to have multiple realities, to hold true space for multiple things existing at once without anything having to be right or wrong. Because when we operate like that, it kind of confines us, and it kind of creates these labels, right? These labels that are really is what is attracting to us. And there are a few examples I can think of times where I actually needed to push through that resistance, or I needed to allow that resistance in itself. And it actually it yielded really great results, because there's a level of discernment when it comes to resistance. when we take resistance and look at it at face value, or what we resist persists, it kind of is a shallowness to it, and it doesn't really get to the root of what it actually is. When we are in a state of resistance, we are usually operating out of fear. We're usually operating out of pushing something away from us instead of drawing it closer to us. And pretty much most painful experiences, separation, trying to think of some other painful states, loneliness, separation, loneliness, any of those painful states like that, it's usually a form of resistance. Racism is a form of resistance. It's not the inclusion of oneness. It's operating out of the illusion of separateness. And it creates this divide. It creates this split. And so there's the spiritual community that says what you resist persists. Yeah, we got that part. But then there's also the religious community that will say, resist the devil and he will flee. What does that mean? Right now, if you're like myself, you grow up with these opposing views that you're like, wait, what? What resist persists, but resist the devil and he flees? What does that even mean? What does that mean? And for those who are familiar with that passage, the way I've interpreted as a youth, I interpret it as, for some reason, it always meant to me temptation. It always meant cheating for some reason. If you resist the urge to cheat on somebody or to be unfaithful in any way, then it'll go away. But then now we're hearing, but if you resist that, it's going to persist and it's going to just manifest even more. And now you're just like paralyzed and not moving either way. And so that's what I really want to talk about, is the discernment between resistance, acknowledging our resistance, and can resistance be a good thing? How does resistance work for us? And depending on how we grow up, I think that resistance can be seen as a virtue. It can be seen as a virtue almost. It can be seen as a delay of gratification or a selflessness. But it's quite the opposite. And I'm going to tell you, it's quite the opposite, because when we are operating out of a state of resistance, we hold other people, we assume other people to that same state. And when people are operating out of their free will and their freedom, we almost try to, compel them or make them comply to the same standard we have religiously held ourselves to. And it creates this even more resistance. And that's the law of attraction part of being in that state of resistance and then attracting even more resistance. So before we even can dive into what is resistance, we have to be aware in what ways in our life are we resisting? What things do we resist? And why are we resisting? What are the beliefs behind it? I'm going to resist, hanging out with this crowd because XYZ. I'm going to resist reading this material because this means that. Those are the turning points, that's where the real jewel is of why are we even in a resisting state. Because in the law of oneness, which is the universal principle of oneness, everything is acceptable. There's no pushing away. We include everything. We love everything as a part of ourselves. So when we are combative towards something or shunning something, it's creating a resistance, which creates a fear. And then it creates actions based out of fear. So when we operate out of non-resistance, we're actually able to receive and to allow the universe to work magically in our lives, because we are not pushing away anything. We are going with the flow of the river, that we are the current that we're all in. So if the current changes, instead of us trying to backpedal or swim against the current, which is exhausting, we allow that current to take us to a beautiful place that we might have never known existed. And so when life throws a curveball, do we continue to try to run back? When the world starts having a pandemic to try to alleviate us to a higher plane, do we try to go back to business as usual, or do we allow the new direction? And because most humans are very resistant to change, although change is the only constant, change from the comfort zone to the unknown can be very unhinging, very fearful, very apprehension can happen, and can create a lot of anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. And that's the byproduct of resistance. A lot of symptoms we have, whether physically, metaphysically, emotionally, mentally, can be showing us where our resistance is. But when we're in a state of allowing, we are very easygoing, right? It's like water off a duck's back. We're just like, okay, yeah, all right, we're going this direction. Okay, sure. It's very carefree. It's a very nonchalant, but still intact with reality kind of feel, And so when it comes to the whole resisting, I'm not even going to say the devil because I don't even, but resisting temptation, going back to the scenario of, I want to cut bread out of my diet. As soon as you say you want to change a behavior, a pattern, a program, oh, you best believe you're going to get reinforcements to test that. And that's where the discernment comes in, to realize, okay, this is testing me to see, do I really want to manifest my highest self? And so, the law of attraction is always going to work. But if you see the bigger picture and realize, no, I really choose to cut bread out of my diet, not out of fear, not out of I have to or I should, but because, you know what, this is not healthy for me and I don't actually want it anymore. And when we operate out of a place of doing it with the pure intentions and reasons, it'll naturally kind of ease its way out of our way. But that doesn't mean there won't be challenges. We're still going to feel, that pull, that inkling to go and eat that bread. If we've been eating bread all of our lives and we decide, you know what, I really don't want bread, and we want to just get rid of it, there's going to be bread put in our face every day just because. And that's the type of resistance that we have to work with, not against, but work with, to see the bigger picture and realize at the end of this journey of not eating bread, I'm going to feel so much healthier. I'm going to feel so much lighter. I'm going to get my summer body, whatever the case is. And there you have a reason of why you're doing it. And you're doing, you're limiting your bread intake, not because someone else said so, not because, well, maybe a doctor said so. But the point of the matter is, once you work on the intention behind why you're doing this, making sure that you own it completely. Like, I choose to not eat bread because of these are my reasons. And I know it's going to be tough initially. I have that awareness. I realize I'm going to be craving bread at first, and over time it's going to be easier. That's with the whole resisting the temptation part, and it will flee. Over time, the desire for bread will be completely dismantled, will be completely diminished, because we saw the bigger picture of how we were allowing our resistance, how we were working with resistance instead of against it. Working against it in that instance would be, I'm not going to resist the bread, even though I have my reasons to. I'm going to eat the bread, and then I'm going to shame myself for eating the bread, and then I'm going to beat myself up, feel guilty. That's working against it. Another way of working against it would be, okay, I feel the desire for bread, and maybe I'm not going to actually go and eat the bread, but I am going to sit here and think about how much I want the bread. And I'm going to kind of self-torture myself, because instead of me allowing and observing this as, okay, I have, my reasons for why I want the bread, and I understand why I'm choosing not to have the bread. There's a lot of talk about bread today, boy. But yeah, so the point of the matter is there's good resistance and there's healthy resistance. And I feel like we rarely talk about the benefits of allowing resistance and acknowledging our resistance, and again, observing without condemning ourselves, without beating ourselves up, because that is the resisting persisting, right? When we beat ourselves up, that is how we draw more of that into us or towards us. And the other thing is being real clear and real honest with ourselves. When we say things like, what's a good example? If we say something, I don't want to use bread again. When we say things like, I really don't like that movie, and we focus so much on all the things we don't like, we're going to notice them a lot more. If we're thinking about how much we don't like somebody's characteristics, or something about, some feature of ourselves or whatever, and we continue to poke at it and we continue to nag ourselves about it, that is the resisting, persisting model. And that's really giving a lot of energy towards it. So we have to be real honest with ourselves to see, like, okay, I'm saying this out of my mouth, but what do I really feel? I'm saying this out of my mouth, but what do I really think? Because haters out there, they spend a lot of energy on someone else, and what they're doing when they spend so much energy hating on someone else, or making it known how much they hate someone else, is they're actually giving it their attention. And that's all you need to manifest and to drive in the law of attraction is your attention. So you might say something out of your mouth like, I'm so over this person, or I'm so done with this situation. And if it's true, then that will align with you. But if we're saying it out of fear, or saying it out of, like a boastful type of way, or trying to convince ourselves, it's going to backfire. It may backfire on us instead, because we're giving it attention. And whatever is true, whatever is real, those receptors are within us. And so that's the baseline for everything. So we might say one thing out of our mouths, but what is actually lurking in our hearts, because that is what we're going to attract to us each and every time. And so that's why I say that it's very important to become aware, to observe. And the awareness is the key. So it's okay to sit with your resistance. It's okay to acknowledge it and to see those places. Where am I resisting? And questioning it. Where did this resistance come from? Was this a learned behavior? Is this something that I want to allow? Why am I resisting? And really diving deeper into those questions. And I'm going to give you guys a few material that has been helpful for me on my journey. And this will really help you understand the concept of resistance, understand some questions to ask, and hopefully maybe get you all to start, innovating your own questions and thinking of those things. So the first I'm going to say is these are all videos on YouTube. The first video is by Teal Swan. Well, all of them is by Teal Swan. It's called Urgent. Deal with your resistance before you do anything else. So I recommend watching that one first watching that first just to understand what is resistance. Are we resisting our resistance? Because resistance, fear, shame, anger, all of those things can really block us from receiving the gifts that are waiting for us. The next video is called Resistance. Episode on negative, problem-oriented thoughts, words, and actions. This is again by Teal Swan. You can search this on YouTube and find them. Those are the first two videos I want you guys to really focus on. Not that I want you to, but I recommend they were helpful for me on my journey. It's been a while since I've seen them, but I remember they were very helpful. After you deal with the resistance, I won't even tell you the other videos yet. Return back for those. No, but I think that's kind of part one to deal with first. And I don't want to overload or overwhelm anybody. So I would say check out those videos. If it resonates, take it. If not, charge it to the head, not to the heart. Keep it moving. I really appreciate you guys being here, listening. Continue to share these videos, or not videos. Continue to share these podcasts and anything that you guys want to know. Or I've said that already, but I think that these videos may help on your journey and your process, and we're going to continue rolling, talking about the law of attraction more. So I will speak with you guys another time. Stay well, stay safe. Until next time.